Freebies, freebies, freebies. Singaporeans love to receive freebies. But is that the only intent of the recently unveiled Singapore Budget 2025? It's not about goodies and freebies. In this CNA article, it says that it comes at a time rife with major geopolitical and macroeconomic uncertainties. A most worrying concern is the volatile trading settling of tariffs induced by the new United States administration together with retaliations by major entities, particularly China and the European Union. Domestically, rising living costs and business costs as well as the changing skill sets required of workers weigh heavily on policymakers. Against this backdrop, Prime Minister and Finance Minister Lawrence Wong unveiled a range of initiatives aimed at helping individuals and businesses face these twin challenges. So what is the intention of the Budget 2025? Well, besides tackling the rising cost of living for the daily Singaporeans, such as CDC vouchers, YouSave rebates, SG60 vouchers, cash, there's also a lot of initiatives to support businesses on business tax rebates for the working population, income tax rebates, as well as skills futures, upgrading, training programs, training allowances for them, and a slew of other measures so that ultimately the government intention is to prop up the Singapore economy and increase our branding and exposure to the world. As PM Wong said in his budget speech, there's considerable uncertainty about Singapore government revenues in coming years. On a global scale, there's a whole slew of uncertainties, especially in the recent years. Ever since President Trump took over the administration in January this year, he has signed a whole lot of executive orders that seem to point that US don't really want to play the global policeman role anymore. They are moving into a protectionism policy, and is pretty much saying every man for himself, as his Make America Great Again slogan says. And if you notice, a lot of large US MNCs are actually mirroring these policies, such as Meta. Recently, they laid off a lot of employees, isn't it? And weeding out all the weak performers, but yet they just announced a plan to increase the bonuses for the executives. Well, this is actually not a new story anymore. If you are around during the global financial crisis, during the Lehman Brothers crash, Bear Stearns, they all closed down, right? But Citibank was actually bailed out by the federal government. And when that happened, Citibank employees, or rather the C-suite people, started paying themselves bigger bonuses as well. So this is what happens in a world where it's every man for himself. In other news, in another part of the world, China, the second largest economy since pre-pandemic days, have been stemming capital outflow so that they can control the prices of yuan as well as prevent money laundering. And during pandemic days, a lot of the tech companies such as Tencent, Alibaba, their prices raised through the roof, and such that the government was actually concerned about, the One China policy not becoming a capitalist market. So they actually introduce a lot of regulatory measures in order to manage all these companies, and together with the pandemic that exacerbated the economic problems as well as a housing crisis, right? Some of the housing developers, the big ones, got bankrupt as well. So China actually has been recovering, but yet recently, if you read the news just last week, the Chinese government actually got together all the big private companies together with a show of intention, right? To show that they are ready to support them, to stimulate the whole economy again and move together as one China. And that's actually very good news for the world, right? So what do all these global activities got to do with Singapore and its latest Budget 2025? Well, if you're familiar with this channel, you know my wife, Fran, and I love to cover on macro topics, on the news events on the world globally, and tie it back to what's happening in your country, right? In this case, it's Singapore. How do we marry the macro together with the micro so that ultimately you know how it impacts you, and more importantly, how you can take advantage of all these uncertainties, all these opportunities to plan for your retirement, to plan for your financial independence as we had over the years, and we love to share that together with you. The world is changing rapidly and moving so fast. So my question to you is, are you keeping up? And to my fellow retirees, are you staying plugged in and knowing what's going on in the world, or are you just isolated and just happily being contented in your little comfort zone? For my fellow Singaporeans, one of the most dangerous things to assume is that we will continue our economic success that we have enjoyed over the last 20 years, to continue enjoying our branding to the world, being a first world country, to assume that our Sing dollars will continue staying strong and continue enjoying our strong purchasing power such that we can travel quite frequently to the rest of the world. And don't forget, we are a tiny nation of 6 million people, and these 6 million people people are actually our human capital. Well, if you minus away the young and old, actually there's a lot less than that, isn't it? So if we are not constantly upgrading, not staying plugged in, not knowing what's going on, right? Just look at the latest case where Nvidia and a lot of the AI companies came from behind, right? DeepSeek, and then suddenly all the money that Facebook, Microsoft, all these AI companies started pumping in seemed like they are spending money excessively when DeepSeek could have been done, or rather had been done in 6 to 7 million, and it's open source, which means the programming code can actually be freely shared with other companies, so that other companies doing in the field of AI are actually catching up very fast as well. So that means that these big companies like Meta, OpenAI, they actually lost their competitiveness, Nvidia as well, right? At the end of the day, there's one thing we all Singaporeans need to have, which is maintaining our competitive edge, which is something that the Singapore government advocates strongly. Well, in Forex, as a trader, that's something we need to have as well. An edge in our trading plan, in our trading strategy, so that we can continue profiting off the market. And if we lose our competitive edge, which is our human capital, we will lose to cities, very similar cities such as Hong Kong, Shenzhen, Shanghai, Dubai, New York. A lot of these cities that can easily, take away from us our financial hub position in terms of R&D, biotech, fintech, right? So we need to stay competitive in all these areas by investing in human capital, and that requires upskill, to increase our knowledge and stay plugged into the global events. The Singapore Budget 2025 is great for alleviating some of your living costs, but they are only temporary. Your focus should be on increasing your income skills, more multiple income skills that I covered in my last video, and also increase your investing knowledge, your experience, so that ultimately you can plan forward for the next 10, 20, 30 years for an awesome retirement. You know what? No government in the world is going to promise you an awesome retirement. Yes, a government like Singapore can take care of your basic needs, your basic retirement costs, whether it's healthcare, food, and accommodation, but that's about it. If you want a spectacular retirement, you need to build it for yourself. If you allow others to dictate how your life should be, guess what? You will live life according to their terms and not on your own terms. This channel is all about early retirement, financial independence, personal finance, investing, and guess what? This is not something that the majority are going after. It is a minority's life. When Fran and I first started this plan, we went out to become hawkers, and guess what? We were corporate employees for the longest time, wearing tie, wearing shirt in the aircon, but we swapped that for a very physically intensive environment that's hot and humid, but yet being the minority is what allow us to break out the corporate rat race. Being the minority actually increase our chances of succeeding because we already know what the majority is going to do. So if you want to be part of the minority, you must be willing to do something different from everybody else off the beaten track, and that will actually increase your chances of success. You know what? I love being part of the minority now. It's actually in my mindset now, because like, for example, everybody else is at work during the weekdays. I'm actually at gym during the midday and there's nobody else there. And during the weekends where everybody has time to go to the malls and get crowded in the restaurants, I'm actually at home. But during the weekdays when everybody else is at work, I'm at the shopping mall, I'm at the cafe, and there's hardly anybody, and usually there's a lot of promotions. Same for traveling during the peak holiday seasons where everybody is crowding and paying premiums for that. I'm actually going for off-peak seasons where I save a ton of money and there's nobody to compete with. The path towards financial independence is certainly not an easy one, that's for sure. But as long as you don't give up, you stay in the game, you will get there much faster than everybody else. Definitely faster than the traditional retirement age of, let's say, 65 in Singapore. So stay in the game, stay connected, and I wish you all the best. This is me, John, one half of the Corporate Breakout Couple, signing off. Do hit the like button, subscribe to join this channel so that we can create more content like this for you, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye. Hey, do join us for our free masterclass webinars where you are up your financial literacy, break out the corporate rat race, and gun for your financial independence. Do register for it now.